I gotta ask you about New Jersey scene. I heard a lot about that scene. A lot of hardcore bands, metal bands, even Springsteen's from there, if I'm not wrong. How that scene impact you?
It was an amazing scene to be a part of.
Mm.
Amazing. I mean, during the time that we came up, you know, we were very influenced by New York hardcore.
Mhm.
Bands like Agnostic Front, the Cro-Mags, Sick of It All, Biohazard, Life of Agony,
Mm.
um, Leeway. You know, I was a huge Leeway
Yeah.
fan. Um, but I think that the New York thing that allowed me to be able to grow as a musician uh, effectively into the musician I probably needed to be was the culture of New York City and the multicultural society. You know, the Latino American society around New York City allowed a band like ours to do our thing, you know, and to be bilingual. I mean, where else in the country could we have been bilingual and taken serious as a radio band? You know, it was kind of unheard of before Rammstein did it,
Yeah.
and I think we might have been. I mean, I guess we might. I don't know. Was Rata Mahata on the radio? It might have been. Rata Mahata might have gotten on the radio. We might have been like the third band, you know, that got on American radio doing multilingual stuff. And New York allowed us to do that. You know, it was that culture of the melting pot of the world, really, and musically, you know, it flourished our performances because we came from a hardcore scene where bands live and die on the stage. You know, they live and die for their fans. They love to meet their fans. They love to perform as hard as possible, and that's kind of like where we learned it from. You know, we weren't trying to outdo anyone. We were just like, oh, this is like how it should be. You know, you're supposed to just give it all if you're gonna go for it, and you know, it carved us as musicians into who we were. I mean, at least it carved me. You know, I don't know about the other guys. I can't speak for everyone, but it carved me as a musician, and especially having grown up in other countries and having metal come into my life after I had already experienced other kinds of music, it allowed me to understand what it was that I found special about it and to really dig into that small corner of what I thought was good metal.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when I got into metal, I didn't just like anything. When I got into hardcore, I didn't just like anything. You know, it had to be something good, really good. It had to be in it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I need to ask you now, beside this virus, America, America got elections. There were racial tensions, police brutality. How you comment all that?
What was that? How did I what?
How you comment that stuff about elections and
yeah, I mean, it's
all
a
that
very challenging
that
time.
you go through, and what you feel that do you think that your children would also feel that same things when they grown up?
Well, it's a complicated time in our country. That is certain. But we're here at this time and at this, you know, I guess political moment because of everything that happened before. You know, there's we can't as a country. It's very complicated when you have half the country saying I see why these are problems. And we recognize that in the past, yes, great country, and we're all trying to do great here, but not everything worked out perfectly, you know, and not everything is as innocent as it seemed. So half the country realizes that. And then you got the other half the country. It's not really half and half, though. It's more than 50% of people feel, you know, we're a good country, but we need to learn from our mistakes. And we need to really, really start to make changes fast, or else the disparity and the hatred and, you know, the anger and the disbelief in the government and the disbelief in the media, it's just going to keep getting worse. So you got more than half people feeling that way, but you got almost half people feeling like everything's great, don't touch nothing, you're a communist if you even suggest anything. You know, which is in itself, you know, it's both of them. If you're an extremist as far as don't change anything, everything's perfect, you know, get out of my country if you think anything should change. And if you're everything has to change because the country is completely broken, you're both you're not being realistic, you know? And that's the problem, is that most Americans right now feel like I do. They're just fed up, you know? We think this country is awesome, but we don't want to see people get hurt, you know, innocently. We want to see people be given their rights. You know, if you should go to a trial before you get beaten up, you know, then maybe you should have a trial before you get beaten up. You know, if you're guilty and they throw you in jail and they beat you up in jail, that's a whole different problem. You know, that's jail. But on the street, we kind of, you know, we're a country of values, and to forget that is ridiculous. I mean, this whole country was founded on initial values for a white person, but then little by little, you know, for white men, it was founded on values for white men, but then little by little we realized, whoa, that's not fair. You know, it needs to be valuable for men and women, and then it needs to be valuable for all cultures. And if, you know, cultures want to come here, then they should be given a rightful process of how to apply for a visa and come here and at least see if they can apply for a citizenship or a residency. So in realizing what can make things better, I think that we'll eventually start sussing out what the bad mistakes or bad decisions might be. But most people feel like I do. Like, America is a great country, but we've made some mistakes. And it's, you know, it's time that we help everyone understand that we didn't get to this situation just because somebody said something. You know, it wasn't like we're here now because George Floyd happened out of nowhere. You know, it's not true. It's just not true. It didn't just happen out of nowhere, you know. Same thing is like saying, oh, we're here in this political divide because, you know, politicians made one statement. It's just not true, you know. Thousands of statements have been made. Millions of statements have been made since the beginning of history in this country to get to where we are, you know. And a lot of them were bad statements, and, you know, we're trying to at least have a more positive outlook on how we carve the future. But there's a lot of fear, you know. People don't want change, and they think that it's, some people don't want change, and they think that change is just bad. Anything that's changed is bad because this is America, and America shouldn't change. But America's been changing the whole time. You know, there wasn't one time that America stayed the same, or else, you know, there would still be slaves if America didn't change.
Right.
You know, women still wouldn't be able to vote if America didn't change. You know, and people fought for those things not to happen. You know, when they were trying to free the slaves, there were almost half people in this country were like, no, you can't do it. It's not good, you know? And yes, there were a lot of Democrats, and most of them were Democrats. And that also points out that reality is things change, feelings change. The feelings of each political party changed, you know? Now, is that political tactic? I don't know. You know, I'm trying not to read into it too much, because I think all politicians have an agenda. All of them are politicians. They're going to lie about something in order to get what they need to get for their people. But I think in the United States, at least, you know, we have a society where if you're upset about something, you could speak loudly about it, and people will join your cause if they really want to say something with you, if they also feel like something needs to be said.
Yeah. You just made me feel now, do you think that those changes are enough for people? You say hatred, and a lot of countries in the world are built on hatred and manslaughter, but America is mirror of the world, and there's a lot of countries in the world going through like America, but we all heard the news from America. But do you think that this is reality we're living it, and our children would live in it, and there was always would be a hatred? And if we think that we can make this world better, we are utopians. This is reality. This is always would be like this, and there is always be hatred. Because
yes,
for me
there will always be I don't know if hatred is the right word, because it takes a lot to get to hatred, but I know what you're trying to say. And what you're trying to say is, will there always be hostility between human beings?
Yeah.
And yes, I think there will always be some form of hostility, but I also have to realize that, or it would be unrealistic to not acknowledge that we're all starting to learn little by little what consciousness is. And the closer we get to realizing where consciousness may come from and why it's a part of human behavior, why consciousness is important to human behavior, the more that we'll realize it's a survival instinct. And it's one of the most important survival instincts that you could have, because, you know, same as babies have the instinct of building as close a relationship with the person that enables their food, you know, we could be, this could be our battle cry for something else. But I think consciousness is something that we're still figuring out. And that's the issue with that, is that there will always be human hostility, and there will always be those animal instinct things about us. But the closer we get to a clear consciousness, I think that the better that we'll get at it. You also got to take into consideration, we're still young. We're still young as a species, you know, and we've evolved a lot. You could argue that maybe some of the technology we have has come from other sources, or came from a UFO or something, and they just don't tell us. But, you know, if you just take a look at the evolution of the human consciousness and what's occurred, yes, there are things that are still hostile. But I think in parts of the world where information flows freely and large amounts of information flows freely, I think that that's where you start to get a more forward, conscious human behavior in society, rather than, you know, the normal hostility. A lot of people are negative. A lot of people are jealous. A lot of people aren't happy for other people when they're successful. You know, a lot of people are macho chauvinist pigs, you know. A lot of women look at men and say, oh, he's a bastard because he's a man, you know. So there's a lot of behavior that is unconscionable in this world, you know.
The first thing what's on my mind is that whole thing in killing of that man, Floyd. After that, the people saying, stop that, you know. I can't believe that we are modern societies, modern men, and that we today are talking that you shouldn't kill another human being for any reason, you know. You gotta make protest about it. That's unbelievable, you know. And particularly in countries that have laws, that have, you know, that conscious that we are talking about, that you need still to tell people that they shouldn't do that, you know. That's
and I mean,
for me.
and it goes even deeper than that, because even in countries that have laws and have rules and have courts and are supposed to have protections for their citizens, sometimes 10% of the time, 15% of the time, the system doesn't work properly.
Right.
So you still get a lot of innocent people in jail. You still get a lot of, you know, I guess, biased, authoritarian kind of policing here and there. Depends where, you know. But it's the sucky reality of humans. That's our fault. You know, we need to grow past that mental block. But it's also because of the way we've been conditioned, what we've been told for thousands of years, you know?
Right. And
I mean, the Saudi government, you know, made a very interesting observation, because they just 2 years ago began allowing women to vote in Saudi Arabia. Until 2018, I think, women couldn't vote there. So when they finally put into law that women can vote, the first couple of elections, no women went out and voted. And there was a lot of concern, and why aren't women voting? And, you know, and the Saudi government had the observation that, look, these values and this belief has been so penetrated into the thinking of our society that they predicted it's going to take 100 years for the women in Saudi Arabia to finally feel like the right to vote is something they should and need to use. Which is, that's another thing that points you to human psychology as well. Change isn't just like that. Some people are ignorant, and I'm not saying that they're ignorant at their own fault. It's just they've been taught to think a certain way for a very long time, you know, and that's what they think. A lot of women think I shouldn't vote there still, even though they could just go and have the right to vote now.
Right. And for the end, I gotta ask you how you see the future of music, and do you think that music would be the same as it was before this virus?
That's a great question. I think that humans have a need to get together in some type of tribal environment for music. You know, it's a very tribal meeting of a physical conscious being, you know, and I think that there's always going to be a need for that. So I think that performances will always prevail. Now, this is the problem. The problem is that it's not going to be the way it was, because what's happening now is all the small venues are closing.
Yeah, yeah.
Most of the small venues in America are shutting down, unfortunately. This is going to go into the middle of next year, and it might even go into the later part of next year, because the vaccine here is not going to be rolled out quickly. A lot of people are not going to take it. The government is going to use that as reasons to say, you know, look, if you guys don't want to take the virus seriously fully, and you don't want to take the vaccine serious, then what can we do? What are we supposed to do? You know?
Yeah.
So the problem is going to be the developing acts, the small artists are going to have an extremely hard time, because a lot of bars, local venues, and small venues where small national acts played, they're all going to be closed. So there's only going to be, you know, huge theaters, big theaters left, arenas maybe. Arenas will be left, obviously, but, you know, the touring community is going to be completely devastated as far as the smaller acts. The acts, if your band plays to less than 1,000 people, you are facing something that I wouldn't wish on anyone right now. It's going to be that bad. Now, it might take a couple of years for promoters, like new promoters, to say, okay, I'm going to start a promotion business once everything goes away. If no other diseases happen and none of that, yeah, then I guess we'll eventually see. But it's going to take that long. I'm predicting it's going to take that long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the music will be changed. How people, you know, experience live music, what bands they do it for. People will go to less concerts, and it'll take time. About 4 to 5 years is what I'm predicting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost you for a moment.
Oh shit! Sorry, this signal's a little wacky sometimes.
Yeah, just last sentence.
Yeah, no, the last sentence was.
Yeah, how music would.
It's gonna take a while for it to go back to the way it was before COVID. It'll come back slowly, but the bands that are playing to 1,000 people or less are going to suffer intensely. Yeah. And the big acts are also going to suffer, but obviously their money and their fan base is so much bigger that they can compromise the loss. The bands that are playing to 1,000, 700, 500 kids, 400 kids, they can't compromise the loss, you know, because a loss to them means going into debt for being on tour, not even, you know, coming out at zero. It means going into debt.
Yeah. So we expecting hard times.
I mean, a little bit for a small window of time. I would have to say yes, unless if, you know, everybody gets a vaccine and all of a sudden in 6 months everything's perfect. But I don't see it happening like that. I don't think it will, you know, but
yeah.
And at first it's going to be all the you know, all the big acts that come out and go to the bigger venues that are still open, because a lot of the small venues, like I was saying, are going to be closed. It's going to be tough for you know, theater bands, bar bands to go back to touring. Yeah. But, you know, that said, the places that are open, the venues and the bars that do remain open, they're going to want to put bands as quick as possible, you know.
Yeah. And Christian, that's it for this time. Thank you very much. Sorry I took your time with your children. all best to you and your family, and hope to see you when this all pass in Europe and to have a live chat and see.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to get back over there, dude.